Hey, do you want to watch some anime? Good. Come closer. Hello! Oh, why are you afraid? Is it because I'm a weeaboo? Oh, good. Do you like JoJo? Come here, come closer, have JoJo. Yeah, come here.
There's only one thing scarier than Pennywise the Clown, and that's the runtime of this film. Not to say that I thought the movie was bad, because I didn't. I just think it was dragged out a bit too much, and the pacing suffered because of it. There were a lot of great scenes throughout the movie that I really enjoyed, but due to how long the movie actually was, they ended up being pretty spread out. And the majority of the movie are things that aren't so entertaining and made me lose interest a bit. I think the main source of this lag was the constant flashbacks to when the main characters were kids. They were spread throughout the entire movie, and while they did give us a more in-depth look on the characters, I don't think that was really needed, as It Chapter 1 already exists and gave us the characters' backstories. Some of the better flashbacks could have stayed, but I think besides a few of the good ones, most of them could have been left out, or at least shortened. They literally just straight up reused some of the scenes from the first movie, like the bar mitzvah scene. We didn't really need to see that again, and when the movie's already so long, I think scenes like that should be left out. One thing I thought the movie did really well was the comedy. There were a lot of scenes that made me laugh, and it's really more of a scary comedy rather than a funny horror movie. The casting was great, and the actors pretty much all looked like grown-up versions of the child actors. Each actor did a superb job, and that's one of the reasons this movie didn't end up turning out bad. The plot was okay, but it's nothing special. It's very similar to the first film's plot and boils down to a group of characters coming together to fight an evil clown monster. This movie is more of a character-driven one, though, rather than a plot-driven one. And I didn't have any real problems with the story, except for the climax. One scene in particular was anticlimactic and kind of silly. The special effects were good, but they weren't so amazing I couldn't tell they weren't real. I didn't really have any problem with it myself, but during the climax of the movie, there was a bunch of flashing lights which my brother and friend who watched it with me said bothered them. I might not have noticed because I was engrossed in the film, or maybe I'm not sensitive to flashing lights, or maybe because I was too tired to notice since it was almost 2 a.m. But if you're really sensitive to things like that, you might want to take that into consideration. Looking at the movie as a whole and as the second part of a two-part series, I think I'll give it a 6 out of 10. It was an above-average film with a lot of good moments, held back by a lot of unnecessary scenes that lengthened its runtime. If this movie was streamlined to have a better pace and runtime, I would probably give it a 7 or maybe even an 8. But even then, it's held back by the somewhat silly end. I don't think this movie was as good as the first one, but it was an acceptable conclusion that gave closure to the characters. If you like the first film and want to see what happens next, I think you should go watch it. While I did talk about a lot of negatives, there were still a lot of entertaining scenes throughout the film, and I'm definitely glad I watched it. If you haven't seen the first one, or if you really didn't care for it and don't care what happens next, you can definitely skip this film. There isn't much point in watching this unless you've already watched the first one. As the title says, this is Chapter 2. It would be like skipping Chapter 1 of a book and going right to Chapter 2. And if you don't like the first one, I doubt you'll like this one, as it's pretty similar, and in my opinion, a bit inferior. Also, if you're afraid of clowns or old people, you might want to look for a different movie that has things a bit more your speed. You could send me a message about how you thought that movie was from Weenie Hut Juniors.